This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. This is my closet full of all the stuff that I love. And today a film about, well, here's a clue. That's right, today's film is about a serial killer and also about a detective, both of whom have mommy issues. This film actually influenced many other serial killer films to follow and features a really fun lead performance by a great actor. Let's check it out. Today's film is No Way to Treat a Lady. It's from 1968, 108 minutes. It's in color. It is about a serial killer with mommy issues, and he's also a master of disguise and very dramatic. He strangles women in their New York City apartments. He can be dressed as a priest or a cop or once even as another woman, and he cases out their stories so he knows how to appeal to them, and he's wearing wigs or a mustache, glasses, costumes, putting on accents, and he gets involved in a game of cat and mouse with the detective who is assigned to him. Now, the serial killer is played by Rod Steiger, so it gives him a lot of opportunity to kind of ham it up with these different costumes and wigs and disguises and these different accents, if it's German or Italian or whatever the accent calls for, the character calls for. And Rod Steiger, of course, probably best known for On the Waterfront, where he really made his mark, and he won an Oscar for In the Heat of the Night. He stopped making films for about 8 years, not long after this film. He had suffered from severe depression, but near the end of his career, he went back to filmmaking, made a couple more films. He also turned down the lead roles in both Patton and The Godfather. So he's really fun to watch, as always. And George Segal plays the detective, and George Segal's a very likable presence on the screen, low-key, and he was best known for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which was his only Oscar nomination. And I always liked him in Where's Papa and Robert Altman's film California Split. The love interest is played by Lee Remick, who is known for Anatomy of a Murder and a film I really like called Experiment in Terror, which maybe I'll talk about at some point, and also The Omen. In this film, I wasn't too crazy about her. She's supposed to be this swinging, 60s chick, but she dresses kind of oddly, and even someone goes to her apartment at one scene and says, "You have a very mod apartment." And she's got the beads coming down in the doorway, and she's got the blacklight posters on the wall. So it looks like somebody's weird idea of what a 60s mod apartment should look like. And Lee Remick's hair is really old-fashioned. If she's supposed to be this swinging 60s chick, she's got like helmet hair, sort of like an astronaut's wife or a flight attendant from the 60s. And so she didn't really work for me. I didn't really care for her banter with George Segal in this film, but more on this later. I also want to mention that there's one scene involving the actor Michael Dunn. Now that's somebody I had totally forgotten about, and Michael Dunn was a little person, and he has a scene in this film where he goes into George Segal's office and confesses to the murder. Of course, we know he's not the murderer, so it's kind of a sad comic scene that he's confessing to it, and they do call him a midget, which is, I don't think, too acceptable nowadays. But Michael Dunn, you might remember from the Wild Wild West. He played the villain Dr. Lovelace. I'm talking about the original TV series, and he was always really good in that. This was based on a novel by William Goldman, who's one of the most famous screenwriters ever. He wrote Marathon Man, and he wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And apparently he wrote this novel kind of on a lark to see if he could do a quickie murder mystery novel. And it's sort of possibly based on the Boston Strangler story at the time. The director, Jack Smite, he's not real notable for much of anything. He did films like Airport in 1975, but he also did a film that I have a fondness for called The Illustrated Man, which also starred Rod Steiger and was based on the book by Ray Bradbury, of course. The tone of this film is somewhat inconsistent. When Rod Steiger's character strangles these women, I mean, his affectations and his disguises and accents are so over the top and kind of hammy that we're not sure if it's supposed to be comic or if it's supposed to scare us. And it does have a couple of scary, creepy moments, but also some comic moments to it also as well. And there's also some other comic relief in this film, like the Michael Dunn scene. There is also this romance subplot between Siegel and Remick. And so it's nowhere near as heavy as something like The Silence of the Lambs or Seven, which you could argue was influenced. Those films were influenced by this one because you have the serial killer and you have the cat and mouse with the detective assigned to the case. There are a couple of cringy moments in this film. Two characters in two different scenes, minor characters, use a derogatory term for gay men. You can guess what they are. I'm not going to repeat it here. And so that was, I guess, of the time, but still it really kind of sticks out now. And also, Siegel lives with his mother, and Siegel's character is Jewish, his mother's Jewish, but it's way overdone. She is constantly nagging him, constantly putting him down, constantly saying how much better his brother is, who's a lung surgeon. And I'm thinking, why does he even bother living with her? He's got to be in his mid-30s. He's got a profession. He's a detective. I don't know why he's living in this apartment with her, especially with her constant nagging. And then just to make sure you know that she's Jewish, we have the big menorah in the background. There's a painting of rabbis on the wall. And when they're eating, there's a big loaf of challah bread on the table. They're eating matzo ball soup, and she's saying, don't be late for dinner, I'm making crepe law, So it's like, wow, this is every stereotype in the world being thrown here. Then it gets even worse when he brings Lee Remick home to meet Mom, and Lee Remick sort of condescends to Mom and is kind of patronizing her because she's also putting down George Siegel, saying, oh, he's such a lummox, he doesn't know what he's doing. Come here and light my cigarette for me. And the mom is so impressed. Oh my gosh, I love this woman. She gets my son exactly. It's like the whole thing seemed false to me, seemed kind of offensive really, that this woman would be so easily manipulated by pandering her and putting her son down. I would think a Jewish mother would be a little more defensive of her son in this point. Like, who's this woman putting my son down? Anyway, maybe that's just me, but I thought that was way over the top and pretty disturbing and distracting, and like I said, just kind of offensive. Despite those nitpicky things, though, I enjoyed the film. I hadn't seen this in decades. I remember seeing it when I was younger, probably in the 70s or so, because it was on TV, so it wasn't in 68 when I saw it. And I remember really liking it, thought it was really kind of odd and funny in ways and edgy and all that. And it holds up pretty well, except for those things I mentioned. And, so I had the nostalgia factor going for me. And if you're a Rod Steiger fan, I think it's a must-see. I'm going to give it 3.5 newspapers out of 5. Why newspapers, you ask? Because Rod Steiger's character, after each murder the next morning, he reads the coverage of the murders in the newspaper to see if they got anything right or anything wrong. And then he complains about it to George Siegel's detective character. Rod Steiger is one of those gentleman killers in this film, similar to the gentleman killer in Strangers on a Train and other films, where the killer is not this maniac, drooling, low-life, crazy-eyed guy. He's a well-dressed, sophisticated, articulate, cultured person who is committing these murders. That's always kind of an interesting take on the villain, I think. So what's on this disc? Well, this is a Shout Factory / Scream Factory disc. It looks good. It's kind of grainy, which is okay, 1968. It sounds fine. The only thing on here is there's an introduction by a film critic, and I did kind of steal some of his ideas for this video. So that's pretty good. It's about 20 minutes long. And then, so where can you see No Way to Treat a Lady? Well, you can, the usual thing, you can rent it, you can buy it, and I don't see it streaming anywhere right now, but you can try your local library. So, there we go, No Way to Treat a Lady. Hope you like this one. Feel free to leave a comment or suggestion down here. Leave a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. I hit over 150 subscribers. Thank you all so much Appreciate it. I don't ask for anything. I don't ask for donations, or I don't get any of this stuff free. I don't have an eBay store and none of that stuff. I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying I don't have anything like that. I'm just doing it just to share what I like with you guys. Share this video with your friends and neighbors if you like. I guess my next goal will be 200 subscribers. That's a big goal, but we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.